Welcome back to Inspired or Acquired. This is the podcast where we interview real business owners, talk real numbers, and ask them whether or not they would sell their business. We're joined today by Brett McManus up in New England by me. Brett owns and operates a great small motel and hotel in Killington, Vermont that we're going to hear all about. And he has a few other entrepreneurial ventures as well. I'm your host, Patrick Dichter. I own Apple Tree Business Services. Our co-host, Clint Fiore, going to be here today. So we're going to roll without him, but that's business. So Brett, how are you today? It's good to see you, man.
Yeah, doing well, Patrick. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah. So fun segue. Tell us a little bit about the business that you've recently bought and what it looks like, and how you ended up in this crazy adventure.
Yeah, absolutely. So a little over a year ago, my wife and I closed the purchase of a rundown, kind of old beat up roadside motel in the ski town of Killington, Vermont. Before that we had jobs. I was in business. She was in teacher. We had started getting into short-term rentals, and we really fell in love with hospitality, but wanted more of a business, like more of a true business. So, a couple of years later of self-education, a lot of looking at ones that made sense, a lot of ones that didn't make sense. We find ourselves here in Killington just over a year ago. So it's, we were fortunate. We ran the property as is for a little while. We kind of got to learn on it, on what it was, and then had the opportunity to get we got an SBA loan to purchase the property. That gave us the ability to raise or have renovation funds as well. We were able to fix it up, really kind of turn it from an old motel into more of like a boutique motel, as they call it by today's standard. And increase occupancy, increase ADR, through that process. Very fortunate. We documented a lot of our journey on social media, and we're very fortunate to have our page that's called Investors, like in like a motel. That got a lot of traction. People loved following our renovations, and we opened it up, and it was a really fun journey. We did a lot of the renovations ourselves, had contractors for the heavy stuff, and then went from, we were doing everything from front desk to toilets to the whole 9 yards. And now we're starting to figure out how to hire stuff out and how to be a little bit more of a business owner, but it's been a wild ride for sure.
That's awesome. And when did you close on it?
We closed on it in February of 2024. So just over a year ago.
Okay. Congratulations. Yeah. I followed you for a while on Instagram. And one thing that I love is like, you just share the shit show and the mess that it is to like run, and the realness. And like, there's so many people that talk about businesses being passive, or like you can just hire an operator. And you guys are so good at being like, okay, we're going to renovate this bathroom, and like, here's me tiling, or the pool broke, I'm going to figure it out. And, we had this emergency over the weekend, and, luckily we know the HVAC guy who can come out. Mm-hmm. So I feel like you guys are great at just keeping it real. So, kudos to you on the growth and being able to share that journey with everybody online. So,
yeah, absolutely. It's always kind of, it's crazy day to day, and it's crazy running around, but it's a little therapeutic, being able to put it out there. And it's like what we always laugh and joke about is when disaster strikes, it's like, well, at least it'll make a good video on the internet. Totally. And it's something you laugh so you don't cry. And
even today we had the podcast scheduled, and you're like, I got to go do something. And so, you want to explain what happened?
Yeah, it's things just pop up in this business. So a lot of stuff we're able to kind of be dynamic, and we're fortunate to have a team now. But even today's day and age, like all of a sudden you get a text from your manager. It's like, hey, health and safety people are here. Like they're popping in the door. And for those of you, whether in real estate or businesses or not, it's like OSHA. It's like one of those other ones where they can turn your world upside down pretty quick if you're not there to kind of walk them around. So you always, we have a lot of fun in our business. We're in a ski town. We get to mountain bike. We get to ski. Like there is a lifestyle component to our business as well. But at any given point, you got to be ready to kind of drop and go and take ownership. But it's always fun.
Got to be there when the health and safety inspector is there. So
yeah.
All right, cool. So that's a good overview of the property. You bought it a year ago.
Yep.
So one thing we like to do on the show is just dive into the numbers. So your place has how many rooms again?
It's 17 units. And then we have an owner's apartment so technically an 18th unit that we house hack, we occupy it. Okay.
And I know there's some seasonality here, but roughly like how much revenue, will the property do this year, do you think?
This year we should be around 600,000. We did about 500,000 last year. we did have downtime for renovation and we rebranded and things like that. So we're coming around into our second, really what will be our first full year of operating with the newly renovated rooms. But this year we're on track to do, it'll be around 600,000-ish. We are in a weather dependent market, so I always put an asterisk on it, but usually it all balances out all right in the end.
Yeah, there's strong winter ski season in New England last year.
Yep.
What sort of revenue was it doing before you bought it?
So when we bought it, they were always doing around like 400,000, and then they were netting out around 225 at the end of the day. It is a little bit skewed. So they weren't using it as a standard transient motel in the past. They were using it as more of like a housing program, like shelter housing. So it was very unique for them, where they just had steady income every single month. So they actually had incredibly strong cash flow for what it was. We knew that wasn't our business. So their numbers were around like that 400-ish, but it was super, super skewed with that program payout that they were getting. And it was a kind of like a short-term program that Vermont was ending during COVID that was going away. So it's great because it helped us get good debt, but it was up to us to really make a real business out of this property.
Yeah, cool. And are you game to share what you paid for it?
Yeah, absolutely. So we paid $1.4 million for it, which ended up working out to about $82,000 a door. If I can do that, it's 88 or 82, whatever the math is on it. And then it ended up working out to at their income for any real estate people out there is 16 cap, which in today's day and age is very good. Yeah. Again, it helped us out a lot in that case. As we got into renovation, we thought we were going to put 300 into it. It ended up being more like a little over 400. And that's just the way it goes into these buildings.
Hey, that's not bad.
No, it's not bad. We had to do a lot of work though. That's the thing. So it's again, it's everything's a silver lining in hindsight. This was supposed to be just a classic example of like, hey, we're getting all the money we need. We got the contractor lined up, and then you crack open that first wall and realize like, oh crap, we got to rewire and replumb this entire place. And it's you have two options at that point. You capital call your investors, or you try to go back and get more debt, which truthfully just wasn't an option for us. Yeah. Or you do what you got to do, you scrape together what you can, and then you roll up your sleeves and you start painting walls. And that's what we did. And it all came together in the end.
Yeah. I love one of your videos. You guys do the whole front of it and you're like, and we ran out of money. So check in later, you know?
Yep. And that was the theme of us, is it's just like a lot of people are like, well, why have you thought about doing this? Or why didn't you do it this way? Or have you thought about this? Like, absolutely, but we're broke. So this is the way we're doing it. And it all works out.
So you bought it for 1.7. You're expecting revenue to be 600K this year. And what do you expect your NOI or kind of your cash flow before debt service to be this calendar year?
Yeah, I actually haven't looked at it for this calendar year. I have to go back and check. It should be. So what I can tell you is like, I know like pro forma, like over a couple of years. So one of the things for us is every year there's a reputation buildup that we have to do. And we know where we'll land around markets. We should be around that like 300 to 350-ish net is what we're really shooting to land at and stabilize out at, closer to that 350 number. Okay. That's what we're aiming for. The hope is that we'll get there this year, but it is a little bit of a time game. You know, we're a very review heavy business. You got to stack it, but over the course of like a 3 to 4 year projection pro forma, that 350 number is really what we're going to hit.
Okay. Got it. And you mentioned, or I guess in our pre-call notes, that your NOI now is about 272, right?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
So if this thing were to trade today, it might trade at what, like a 9 or 10 cap?
Yep. Spot on. That's what we saw in our appraisal when we were getting our comps.
Okay. So a lot of math going on here, but then that would place the valuation at what, 2.7?
2.7. Yeah.
Okay. So if you're able to follow that, bought it for 1.7 a year ago, might be valued at 2.7 or more now. Would you sell and like take the W and, maybe take a break and roll on to something else, or like you want to hold and keep going?
Not yet. We're in the dogfight here, man. Part of the perspective, I'm 27 years old now. So for me, It's like, I couldn't retire if I wanted to. So I won't say that. I don't know that I'm old enough to consider this a legacy asset yet. It's at least a decade asset though. And for us, there's a market component to that. There's a lot of development happening in Killington right now. New owners that came in and bought the resort. There's a lot happening in the town right now. And I'm really excited to ride that wave and see what comes of it. And even all of that aside, just property example, the big thing that I mentioned and really honestly learned on this property that I wasn't expecting coming in is when you're coming around your first year, like we had a lot of these like big weekends coming up that you didn't know they were big weekends. So it's like August, picture it. And you're getting like a booking here or there for like February or March. And you're like, oh, that's cool. Like it's helping us with cash flow a little bit. And it's getting us through in our first year. And all of a sudden you get to March and realize that all those one-off bookings like added up. And all of a sudden, like, oh shoot, we're sold out, and we should have been like $100 a night more. So I'm really excited to like come. And yeah, and it was good for us in our first year of business. It gets people in the door, it gets the name out there, it gets you reviews. Like it's not a bad thing by any means, but coming around for the next couple of years, it's like you just feel more excited, like knowing like, hey, here's where we should have been priced for these nights to be more competitive with the market. And there's just a learning that comes to that again, in our case, like there was never a book that calls that out. There's never a podcast to follow that's like, hey, make sure you don't like. Maybe there is, but we didn't have it. And that's what would stop me from selling today. I think there's a little bit more that we can squeeze out of this thing. We'll still just build in a really cool asset that I think will be worth a decent amount down the road.
That's awesome, man. So who bought the resort?
So Killington was owned, like a lot of these ski areas. Killington was owned by a corporation that owned like several properties out in Colorado and the Pacific Northwest. And in a world where you hear about all of these little resorts getting like bought up by Val or whoever, a group of private investors banded together a bunch of money and they bought the resort in cash without any debt. So Killington, the company that owned all these resorts, was downsizing. And this is just a group of wealthy individuals who grew up skiing here. They've been very involved in the town for a long time. As the story goes, they did not want to see Vail by the mountain. So they got a bunch of people together. They did not want to be... They wanted to create a property that their grandchildren were going to be able to, grow up and ski at. And they bought this resort in cash and are dumping a ton of money into snow guns, equipment, staff. There's a new village development. One of the things that's kind of hindered Killington for a long time is there's not like a walking village with shops. There's bars and restaurants and things to do, but not like one of these like out west villages. The developments in the works for that again, for us, wink, wink, doesn't have any hotels planned into it. And so we're really excited to see like what they do at the property and hopefully go along with that ride as well.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, that's a great tailwind. Hey guys, we want to take a quick break from the show just to tell you about our companies that make this happen. My name is Patrick Dichter and I own Apple Tree Business Services. We do accounting and tax nationwide. So if you own a small to medium-sized business, we'd love to help. And we can also do financial due diligence for any acquisitions. You can check us out at appletreebusiness.com.
And speaking of acquisitions, this is Clint, your co-host. My company is called Dealonomy. You can find us at dealonomy.com. We are on a mission to just make it 10 times easier to buy or sell a small business. If you're a buyer, you probably feel like finding a good business to buy is like searching for a needle in a haystack. We have created the Needle Store where you can just go find a great business that's turnkey, ready to purchase with banks ready to lend on it. Go find you a good one. Go buy it at dealonomy.com. And if you're a seller, we're the only place you can sell your business for no commission with a fast, free, guaranteed result. And so it's very innovative, easy button for buying or selling a business. Hope you join us at dealonomy.com.
All right. Thanks for supporting us. Now back to the show. I grew up in Colorado and so I know the big bad monster that is Vail Resorts. And I grew up outside of Denver, but my dad a few years ago moved out near Steamboat, like out by the reservoir. And he's 25 minutes from Steamboat Mountain Resort. But there's an old abandoned ski mountain out there. And there's like all these rumblings that somebody's going to reopen the resort. And there's so many people that are like trying to place bets on if they're actually going to get it operational and is there enough snow out there. And but that's awesome to have ownership group that you feel good about and new development and new people come into the market that you serve. So
yeah, absolutely.
That's great. So you bought it with an SBA loan. Is it a 25-year amortization? Okay.
Correct.
So we talk to a lot of people that buy service businesses and it's a 10-year, or if it includes some real estate, sometimes it gets longer. But if it's majority real estate like yours, 25 years gives you a lot more breathing room on the cash flow.
Absolutely. And that's the nice part. You see certain assets, motel, hotels, one of them, car washes, self-storage facilities, where it's really, it's a business, but it's really a real estate asset at the end of the day. That, like, for us as a motel, it's heavy on the business compared to the other two, but it gives us really good debt. For us, the other really like nice piece about the SBA, the 504 program is specifically what we used. typically when you're buying real estate assets, you're getting a 5-year, maybe it's a 20-year note, but you have a 5-year balloon on it. And there's a lot of people that are getting in trouble with that right now. People who bought properties when they were like a 3% rate, and those notes are all coming due now at much more than 3%. And that was one of the big things that pushed us to SBAs. It's very rare in the world of real estate to be able to get long-term fixed rate debt like that. And also being able to wrap in your renovation costs. We have a lot of FF&E with furniture that we had to purchase and replace. It's really cool being able to wrap all of that into one loan and limit your out-of-pocket cost. And for us on a value add piece of real estate, we're doing a lot to increase NOI, and increase our occupancy rates. We can still, put that money in without having to come cash out of a pocket a lot, but then have a huge lever that we can tow on with renovation to build some solid equity on the backside. So really, really, really cool tool to use for what we're doing.
That is awesome. That's huge. And I want to touch on a couple other things you put in the show notes. I've been following your story, and then I saw that you don't have any employees. So you're keeping this thing really lean and mean. Tell me about that. Is that just intentional, or too small, or like everyone's subcontractor, or what does that look like?
Yeah. So in the beginning, it was because we were a little nervous to be honest. We were still figuring out what the seasonality was looking like. And our big fear going into it is that we are going to have to carry a lot of employees through the off season. So one of the nice part about these boutique motels, so for anybody listening, essentially picture your roadside motel where you have all your doors on the outside. We came from a world of Airbnbs and short-term rentals where you're not able to be at the property. So the really cool part about doing Airbnb before we got into this motel space is we're used to operating without being there. So there's a lot of technology and software. So basically how it works is, Patrick, you come and you book with us. You go right to our website. It's super easy, quick and clean to book. The day of your check-in, you're automatically going to get texted the code. The day of arrival, you can come. We live here on site. We're available. Or if we're not here, somebody's around. So if anything goes wrong, there's still somebody here. That's where it really separates us from a short-term rental. But you can head straight to your room. You can punch in. You got everything you need. If you're driving up from Boston on a Friday night to ski and you're rolling in at 12 o'clock, you don't have to wait at a front desk and fumble with all your stuff. You roll in, you plop into your room. And then, so really for what us that looks like is housekeeping. Housekeeping is really it's really our cost of goods sold on our business. It's the building. And what I joke about is at the end of the day, we really are a cleaning company. That's our main servicing that we do day in and day out. And that's where 17 rooms, and what we've come to learn is it's a weird size because it's just big enough where it's not mom and pop's little bed and breakfast, but it's not quite big enough to justify the full team of people. So we've so far found the best fit is to contract out cleaning. So we have a cleaning company that comes and works for us, and it actually ends up being very easy for them because where they're used to having to go in to all of these houses and condos all over the place and lug all their supplies and linens with them. It's all here. It's all here ready to go. And it's just the same thing over and over again. So they can come in, they can bang out 5 or 6 rooms at a time. And it ends up being really efficient. And it works as we've mathed it out. It still ends up working out in our favor where in our peak time a year, it feels like we're paying a lot, but oftentimes we found the demand is there. We can just bake it into the price. But right now when it's April and it's downpouring rain, I don't have any employees that I'm having to carry on my book. So it's allowed us to operate what I've mathed out better off than having our own employees on staff. And I don't have to worry about calls in sick. There's always somebody here when we need it. And then same thing on the linen side. The other question we get a lot is laundry. We used to do our own laundry for every Sunday. My wife and I'd be out there doing laundry for 8-10 hours a day. And the same thing, we just mathed it out. For our unit count, we're better off just using a linen rental company. By the time we factored in, it's not just the time for somebody to be there doing it. It's the waste. Linens get stained, they get destroyed. And I didn't realize how expensive fitted sheets were until you're buying them in bulk all the time. And same thing, it works out good where we can do a linen rental service. So they're just there, ready, ironed, clean, perfect sheets ready to go on the shelf. And it lets us do, in my eyes, a really good amount of business with a lean, mean team. And so far the numbers have been working out good. In this first year, our cash flow worked out right to a 30% margin with all that in place. Nice. And that's something I'm good with that. We'll keep trying to work on that top line number and increasing rates as our reviews go up. But our operational costs won't change at all at that as long as the occupancy stays the same. Just try to get a little bit more out of that nightly rate.
That's great, man. So no food, no booze.
Nope. The best part about us is we're the And this is part of our due diligence. We're the only motel, only lodging option within walking distance of all the bars and restaurants in town. So it works out really good where like they can go and they can dine and they can eat out in all those other places and come walking back. And that's our main amenity.
That's great. The other part of this adventure is this video pops up and you're like, there's this other hotel down the street where we've, started to operate. So give us kind of the scoop on that and what that looks like for you guys right now.
Yeah, for sure. So when we were looking for our motel, like we knew that Killington was one of the markets that we had aimed to purchase a property. And there was this other hotel down the road called the Gray Bonnet Inn that was a bigger hotel, like big 30,000 square foot buildings. This is flashback to like 2023. We're on the hunt looking for properties and I could never get in touch with the owner, never figured out what was going on. The doors are locked, place is closed. Flash forward, we buy our motel, everything's great. Well, Killington's a town of 1,200 people year round, like in the off season when the skiing's not going on. There's not a lot of people who live here. And as we got to get to know more locals, and we'd always ask, like, hey, what's going on at the Gray Bonnet? What's going on down there? And nobody knew. And if anybody's from or knows anybody from a small town, like that everybody knows what's going on everywhere. Yeah. So it took a while. But eventually you get this guy on the phone. We ended up tracking, Skip Trace's phone number and find him. And come to find out, he's an individual who bought this hotel. It had been back in the day one of the happening properties in Killington. It was like the main hotel. People got married there, and owners kind of let it go over time. Eventually, the property gets foreclosed on, and then it sits empty for 10 to 15 years, somewhere in there. There's different dates floating around, but a long time it sat empty, and Mother Nature took over, and this guy was able to buy it for basically free at foreclosure auction. So it's a 44 unit hotel on 20 acres of land in a ski town, but it needed a lot of work. So he puts all the money in, but he wasn't a hotel guy. He thought he was going to be able to sell it. And what we know is it's very, very difficult to get a loan on a hotel that has no income history. But he has all this capital that he put into it. So it's kind of stuck right now. And, we looked at that, and at first, you're like, there's nothing we can do with this. And we talk about it and say, well, what if we just came in and started managing it? Like, we've learned all of this. We've got relationships in town, and
so you kind of clean it up, but there's no guests or anything.
It's eerie, Patrick. You walk in there the first time, and it's kind of like something out of The Shining, where it's like the beds are made, the dining room set up, and like literally, we walked in there and had this thing up and running in a couple of weeks. It was all ready to go.
Set up.
It's but the lights are off. It's just literally like when we flash forward and we can get in this, but it was it was ready to go. It was just sitting there empty because he had nobody to run it, and he just wasn't. He had other stuff going on. It just crazy scenario.
Yeah, that's wild, man. So you guys took it over, and you opened the doors when?
Yeah, so this is September of this past year. So we had a summer operating our place under our belt. We knew we were coming in a busy season, and in about 4 weeks, we went from like where we found it to like finding staff. So that was a bigger hotel. So we did hire staff for that one down there. And again, the way that it worked out, the agreement with him is like we didn't want to like really stretch ourselves out on this place because we didn't know like what it was going to be and like what we were going to find out. So it's like, hey, dude, you still own this. You pay the expenses, pay everything, pay the salaries, but we're going to put everything in place. We're going to bring our computer system in. We're going to hire staff and just give us a booking percentage off the top for all the work that we did. And that was like the win-win structure for him. And our idea is like, we still want to buy this thing. And he genuinely still wanted to sell this thing, but it was really hard to put a value on the asset at the time. Because again, we didn't know what it was going to be able to make. And the tough part that can be a challenge about Vermont is these things just don't sell. So there's not a lot of examples of 40-room hotels that have sold within the past 2 years to see what they're going to. So it's like, we're just going to start running this thing, see how it goes. And that worked for him. And that's what we did. So we got it all in place. We're deep cleaning the entire thing. We're getting the water running, getting the heat fired up again. And we ended up being able to time it pretty well, where we went from a totally vacant property to 4 weeks later, there was a big event happening in Killington, and we sold out that first weekend that we were opening, which was incredibly stressful, but also really exciting at the same time. And it was like the 2 nights before, and we have videos about all of this. Like we're like, man, like, and then that was the point where we realized we were going to be sold out for this first weekend. It's like, we should probably like run all the showers and make sure these things work. And there's shower heads spurting water everywhere. And it was rowdy. And I'm at like Home Depot at 9:00 at night buying like every shower head they have at the counter, because what plumber are you going to get to come and like help you out at that point? And we got it up and going. And that was the start of a series of I won't call them unfortunate events, but learning experiences that we had on that property. But every weekend we learned something and ended up just having a killer winter down there too. We got a ton of experience. Like for us, the invaluable part, and what you'll learn, whether you're buying a plumbing company, motel, any type of business, like at least for us, when it came to the bank, the number one question they're trying to answer is, well, what qualifies you to run an asset like this? And it was really hard on our 17 unit to justify that. And that's where it was such a beautiful opportunity for this building, is getting to learn how to run an asset like that actually required its own staff. There is a bar there. There is a restaurant there. There's pools, there's game rooms, all this stuff. Like we got to learn how to run all that on somebody else's dime. And now we're going through the process of like what purchase like that's going to look like. So that'll be the next time I come on, hopefully we'll talk about that one.
The follow-up. So this is an awesome win-win that, he gets to create the history to be able to sell it. You get the experience. But you're also driving the price up against yourself in a way, right? So like if it does 300K or 600K or 900K revenue, the better you run it or the more history there is, then like you're driving the price up against yourself, right? So is there any like handshake agreement of like, we're going to do it within this time period, or we're going to do it at this cap rate, or like what does that look like? And how do you not have that feeling of like, man, I'm just like driving the price up?
Yeah, you do. So the name of the game for us, it's a tightrope. Like I won't sit here and like make it any more baloney. We're walking a tightrope of letting it go just long enough where we know like, hey, there's something here. Like we figured out all the code violations and everything wrong. Like we actually want to buy this thing, but not long enough. And the good news for us is like when you go to a bank and the first thing, and you want to get a loan for one of these things, the first thing they ask for is the last 2 years of tax returns. And for me, like that's kind of been our cap of like, hey, we need to let this run just long enough where we know there's a paper trail there, but not long enough where he can just go like take this thing and run it. And there is a kind of a handshake agreement. And I do, and I can flash forward now. We're still like working on price a little bit right now, but like I can kind of say in hindsight, it's all working out. Time will tell eventually, things can come up. But what I'll say in the beginning, we just didn't know. And that was ultimately the gamble that we are willing to take, is for being in our 20s and having an individual willing to pass us the keys to a 44 unit newly renovated hotel. Like this was an experience that like with no strings attached. Like, and that was the big thing for us. As easy as it was for him to boot us out, it was easily as equal for us to walk away if things didn't go well. And what ultimately my wife and Casey and I decided is, we're willing to take that gamble of, hey, even if things don't work out on this one, we have the experience running one of these buildings now. And what we know, like we have no shame picking up the phone and cold calling any hotel in a given state to see if they're for sale. We'll go do that. But now we're going to have the confidence that we can actually pull it off. So as we're going through it, it looks like we're going to be able to make something happen here. But truthfully, if anybody else is finding themselves in the position, it's especially if you're on the younger side of things, you have a long, like, we all have long runways for what we're doing. There's a lot that can happen. What I've learned, a lot can happen in your life in a short period of time. But experiences like this are invaluable. And people always talk about these kind of like golden moments they have, and they never feel like it in the moment. Like when we were in that last September, it's everything that you just said is exactly what's going through our mind. But it's like, hey, we're never going to be able to get this like experience opportunity again. So let's take it, let's run with it, and let's see what happens. And I do believe that we're going to be taken care of on the backside for taking that leap, but time will tell.
Time will tell. It's awesome. Yeah. When I was looking for accounting firms to buy like 4 years ago, there was one guy that was like, come do sales for me and then you can buy it. And I was just like, what if I crush it? I'm driving the price up, but so that's great. How many other opportunities are there in Killington? Are there many motels and hotels, or like?
Yeah, there are. So the nice thing about Killington is there's other properties. There's not nearly enough to service the demand coming into this area. That's the beautiful thing. So what's tricky about Vermont is Vermont's a very tough state to develop and build anything in. They want to keep it rural. There's a lot of acts and bylaws in place that make it really hard to develop. The good news is we kind of have a moat around what we're doing, where I don't have to worry about a hotel coming in across the street. So there's not a ton of them. A lot of them are legacy assets. So they get passed down from parents, passed down to their kids or whoever. It's you see a lot of that happen here for sure. So we were very lucky to get in the way that we've gotten in. So we love Killington. We're not going anywhere. Transparently though, as we look for what's next, it'll probably be a different market. At some point, especially when we have two of them in the same town, it works out very good. We're like, Gray Bonnet's awesome for families. There's a pool, there's a game room. It's really good for families. We're the motel walking distance from the bars. So it tends to be a younger crowd that stays here. You get to a point though, where if you own too many of these in the same town, you are kind of competing with yourself a little bit. And the reality is that like, I am not shameful to talk about either, is we are in a market that's reliant 100% on Mother Nature. I mean, the bulk of our income comes from the winter months. And as you know, it sounds like close to the Northeast, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. And that drives a lot of it. So I think we'll look to go elsewhere for whatever asset comes next. Right now we crush it from like Labor Day all the way through Memorial Day. I want something that crushes it from Memorial Day to Labor Day. So I don't know where that is yet, but it's probably where our path will take us.
I'm in, I'm like 2.5 hours away. I'm in Dover, New Hampshire, Portsmouth. So
yeah,
you could buy something, summer focused on the seacoast and,
It's exactly, man. I love Maine. I love New Hampshire. I love the Adirondacks in upstate New York, like places like that. There, it's like, it's not too far away. I'm a New England guy through and through, but, yeah, you're right. You're right on the right track with what we're thinking.
Yeah. So with those future opportunities, I know with the SBA 7A right now, the most debt you can get is $5 million.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah. If there's no real estate and if it's the same industry, what's the limit on 504? Or would you get traditional lending on additional properties, or have you thought through that?
Yeah, it's so 504, it's the same limit. And so we have room to go and do another one of these on a 504 program. SBA loans, as much as I sit here and say they're not the easiest, especially as far as loans go, there's a lot of paperwork. And the biggest thing with them is typically the property has to kind of conform to what they want to see. They want prior income history. And what we found looking for this hotel is that there's a lot of other owners out there that they have good assets, like good properties that they've taken care of, but they're coming into retirement, like a lot of other business owners and they've kind of let it slide the past couple of years. And so the property and the asset is good, but the income isn't necessarily there, which sometimes can make it tricky for the SBA. The crucial part for us, though, is we had never done this before. Like, even though we had owned short-term rentals and we had done some of that before, like a bank, it's not exactly apples to apples to run in like a full hotel. So the SBA were the only ones crazy enough to loan this kind of money to two kids in their 20s without having a net worth equal to the loan amount. But now that we have that experience running it, it does open up other doors to other types of conventional bank financing. Seller financing is something that you really see common in this space. But again, in both of those examples, you typically have to be able to convey to that bank or that seller that, hey, I have the capability to run and pull off this project. Yeah. We have that proof point now. So for me, the way that I look at it is I have buildings and assets that I'm going after now, examples. And for us, it's not even necessarily properties that need a lot of work. Like what I'm looking for at this point now are properties where, hey, it's a good, maybe it's outdated, it's cosmetically, but the business is where we can really fix it, cosmetically fix it up, market it better, give it a good brand. That's what I'm looking for at this point. And it doesn't necessarily matter if the business is perfect and the income's there, because we have the proof point. And now I just use all these different pieces of debt as just tools in the tool belt that we can take it down.
Got it. I love that. That's awesome, man. And one of the tools in the tool belt, you're developing a booking platform, right? For independent stay. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So one of the things, this is kind of like one of our, what I'm going to say is going to be like my passion project for probably the next decade that you'll see us work on. So one of the crazy things that happened, so to put it in perspective to anybody listening, we were very lucky to grow a very large following on social media where we have a little over 300,000 followers now. Many of those individuals have been willing to come and book and stay at our property. And one of the things that we've really learned from a lot of these folks is, they tell us all the time where, hey, like I would never stay in a motel. Like I'm a Hyatt, I'm a Marriott Hilton person through and through, like motel, no way. But then they watched what we did with our videos, fixing these properties up, and like they come and they stay and they're like, this is awesome. Like it's like all the benefits of staying in like a boutique, high amenity Airbnb, but with all the efficiencies and of being in a hotel and like having people there to help you out. And like, this is awesome. But what we know being in the industry is that there's people at our level or better all over the country that are kind of struggling with these really cool properties, really cool owner stories that are kind of struggling to see the light of day. Because let's face it, like unless you're a social media expert and you're relying on Expedias and Booking.coms, like if you can't always pay your way to the top, you fall back on those booking pages. So independent stays is kind of our way of really using our platform to go out and highlight other incredible owners just like doing the same exact thing that we are in their cool properties. And then really kind of creating this landing page where you can find these owners and then have a link to their direct booking website to make sure like you as the consumer are getting the best price possible. A lot of them not having to pay these big booking platform commissions are willing to extend discounts to our users. So what it ends up being like, instead of like, hey, Patrick, you're going to stay at this property. Well, if you go and you book through Expedia or booking.com, which is a lot of times the only way you can find them, there's a 20% commission that they charge in there. So usually
20%, okay.
20%, that ends up getting baked into the price. So what a lot of these owners are saying for us in our platform is, hey, if you can help us get rid of that 20% commission and help connect us with people who will book directly, we're even willing to offer a discount on the bottom side of that to help, share some of those savings. So it's a really cool win-win where people can go and find just these cool independent stays, book with them directly, support those business owners, and also travel at a little bit of a cheaper rate. So it's in its early phases, but that's it's kind of my passion project that my wife and I are on the side.
That's awesome, man. You're taking on the 800-pound gorilla and fighting the good fight. And being able to help the independents keep a little bit more money in their pocket. So
we'll see where that one goes.
Yeah. And then your Airbnbs, you still own some, right? So like, are those things that you're like, okay, we'll hold those forever? Or are those like, hey, if we did find a big enough deal, we'd be willing to sell those off to like go,
Yeah, those ones we would. If you asked if we'd sell something today, those would be one of them. We had long-term rentals, we had short-term rentals, not massive, but about like a dozen units that we were managing across a few different properties. And some of those we had to liquidate to make this happen. You sell off some of those to kind of scale up. And that's kind of the nature of the game in real estate. You sell one or you take one, fix it up, sell it, roll into the next. No different than businesses as well. We have a couple of these left. Like they're just good properties. Like one of them, I still have a long-term rental where we have tenants that are awesome and they're easy and it's great. And we keep those. We have short-term rentals that just chug along and do their thing and we still like them. But those are ones where we'll pass them off. I'm really excited. Like my sister's getting into it now too. So like one of those duplexes I'm actually selling to her. It's going to be her first property and like a way for her to get her start. She's helping us manage the short-term rentals remotely from afar. So she's kind of like, I've kind of forced her to learn and now she's grown kind of fond of it that way. So I'm hoping for me, it can be a little bit of a pass the torch as well too. But again, a lot of times it's, little trees that you're watering that they grow. And eventually, those could be the seeds for an even bigger deal that we might want to do in the future. Exactly.
Where are those? Are those in Vermont or Mass?
They're in the Finger Lakes over in Western New York, if you're familiar with that at all. So that's where I grew up. It's a region in Western New York called the Finger Lakes, and it's a very popular winery region. So there's a lot of micro wineries there. And so it's kind of a very specific like niche thing, but you get a lot of people traveling in and doing the wine tours and bachelorette parties and stuff like that. So again, kind of a little hidden gem over there, but it worked really, really good for us to get our start.
That's cool. So if the bonnet doesn't work out, then you'd maybe start like some direct outreach and find your next.
Yeah. And that's one of the cool things that I love about hotels, and there's other businesses that are like this too, is the phone number's on the front page of every single one of these. And typically what we've found is a lot of times the owners, they're hospitable people, they work in hospitality and they're willing to talk to you. And really, truly, like how we got our start is there weren't a lot of educational resources specifically on hotels. There are some nuances to it. And we just started calling people up or send them an email or something and say, hey, our names are Brett and Casey. We've been running short-term rentals, but we want to do the same exact thing you are. We want to get in a motel. I don't know if you're ever, interested in selling, but if not, would you even be open to just talking to us and like sharing your experience? And that's how we got started going to see some properties. And what we found is a lot of times these are individuals that have, it's hard to not get an emotional attachment to these places. A lot of times they are a creative outlet to you. And there's a lot of value or a lot of interest in it. When your kids aren't interested, I think that can hurt for a lot of people. So when a young couple or anybody comes along showing interest in your baby, even if they're not willing to sell, we had a lot of people who were willing to give us the playbook on how they bought these things, how they financed them, what they learned, things to watch out for. And eventually that led to the first, few pieces of underwriting, places that say, hey, we would consider selling. And some of them probably just had pity on us. They didn't know if we'd be able to buy it or not, but they'd give us their books and they'd let us underwrite it. And eventually, we get to where we're at now. But truthfully, if I was going to start again, it's the same exact thing I'd do. I'd go on Google. I'd find another market that I was really excited about. I'd look for properties that I think have some value add and send an email, rip a call, do the same thing again and rinse and repeat.
That's cool, man. Yeah, we saw self-storage get super hot a few years ago, and certain categories get like really popular, and who knows, maybe this will be one that heats up a lot. I grew up in a small town. I don't have you ever been to Red Rocks in Colorado, the concert venue?
Yeah.
So I grew up in a small town right there in Morrison.
Very cool. Yeah.
There was this like big, beautiful pink bed and breakfast that was always in town there, and my mom was friends with her, and it was kind of like that property that everybody wanted, and they didn't allow Airbnbs. And I always kind of like thought it'd be like fun business to own and operate. And she was an amazing woman, but she didn't believe in insurance. And like, unfortunately, the place burned down, and she survived, but like the property and the business was like kaput, and there was like different developers trying to get it and buy it. And actually one of the South Park guys,
oh, no
Matt,
kidding,
Trey, whichever one, Matt, he bought it and he made it his personal residence. And it's actually been kind of cool because he made it like this beautiful home and not like too like weird, different. And it's just in like a beautiful little small town there. But they've been in short-term rentals, and you can't really develop much there. And like everybody was trying to get their hands on that. And
that's a trend that I think you're going to see. So right now, and I don't know how close you are to the short-term rental world, but there's that blew up. It had its phase during COVID, and everybody was buying short-term rentals left and right. And in comes the saturation, in comes the regulation. And it's another one. I'm a little biased right now because we hear it from our guests coming in, our motel travelers. But even on the traveler side of things, I think people have a lot of head trash around, the fees are high and I got to clean this whole property if I'm going to stay here, and all these things, that there's kind of a sour taste about the Airbnb world right now. And then same thing on the owner's side of things, regulations happening. And there's a lot of people right now who bought and invested into a lot of these properties and furnished them. And then with one stroke of a pen, no more, it goes away. And that's what inspired us to get into this. And there's still kind of this moat right now around it where, again, the playbook's not quite there on, there's not a lot of people out there saying, hey, from A to Z, here's how you buy your first motel, and you go get the SBA loan and you call the people, but that'll come in due time. Eventually more people are figuring it out. And I do think there will be a very big wave of short-term rental operators who are ready to take that next level up, because there are so many synergies in the operations of it. But from a business standpoint, it just makes so much sense, because like where we look at it now, where the income that we're able to generate from one of these boutique properties transparently isn't far off of what I see condos go for in this town and other short-term rentals. But the difference is they're all under one roof. It's one tax bill, it's one lawn to mow, it's one furnace to keep up with it. There's so many efficiencies that come with it that a lot of these individuals are capable of doing. So I think we'll see that. And the part that gets me so excited about it, to bring it to your example, is these things are everywhere, especially in New England. You go drive through Maine, New Hampshire, even out in the Midwest and in the Pacific Northwest, these old 50s and 60s motels, like they're still around. And while there sure as heck are examples of ones that have just been let go too far, if the utilities are too far, if they didn't take care of the roof and water's pouring in through the ceiling and the floor, you might want to stay away from that one. But there are a lot of really good mom and pop properties that are just ready to go, that I think are great entry-level businesses that people can get into. And again, from my background, like we had a couple of short-term rentals. Like my wife was a science teacher. I had a desk job. Like we were not seasoned business operators. And it's kind of a business on training wheels a little bit compared to like a restaurant or something crazy like that. I just think there's a lot of opportunity in this space. And I think we'll hopefully see more people get in, but I think it's going to be for like the right reasons of saving a lot of these assets. Yeah,
that's cool. There's definitely plenty of them. And I mean, just to see you guys create $1 million worth of value in a year, and I'm sure it'll grow, is also just a testament to your operational expertise and the opportunity for other people that are trying to change their lives and buy a business, so.
Yeah. And the one piece that I want to hit out of that too, not to labor on it too much, is it is very cool. It's not for everybody, but there's a lifestyle that comes to it as well. And especially if you can pick somewhere, like for us, we love to ski and mountain bike. So we bought a motel on half a mile up to the biggest ski resort in the East Coast. And like, on our social media, like we're trying to do a better job at it. It looks like we just run around and work all the time. We do, but we also ski a lot too, and we have a lot of fun. And like, I get to hang out and work with my wife every day. And I know that's not for everybody, but like whether it is or it isn't, like it can be a really cool way, to kind of lifestyle business can almost seem like in the business space like a negative term,
Yeah.
but when you're actually living it, like it's a cool thing, and there's a cool opportunity to create balance for yourself if that's what you want to do. And if not, like they can still just make good businesses with a manager in place. And we see examples all the time where it's the exact same thing we're doing, but there's an innkeeper living here and they really want to live at the beach, in the mountains, in the city, wherever it is. So a lot of times they can live in one of these owners' quarters. They're willing to take a subsidized income to be able to live in one of these like high value places. And it's a win-win. So there's a lot of cool opportunity regardless of what you want to do.
Yeah, amen. In your first year, you got how many ski days in?
We got 40 days in. I haven't done that since college.
That's one of the best, KPIs, quality of living indicators right there. That's awesome.
I try not to forget about it, but it's
That's great. Great example, man. Well, this has been a really fun conversation. If people want to connect with you online, we'll link to it in the show notes, but where's the best place for them to reach out if they want to connect?
Right on our Instagram page is the best one. It's @investors. And I know the big follower count can be intimidating, but we respond. We try our best on the comments, but messages we're good at. Like we respond to all the messages ourselves. It's us on the other side of it. So yeah, right on Instagram @investors with 2 N's, and it comes to me.
Awesome, man. We'll link to that. And if you're not following him, you have to, because it's inspiring and funny and real. So anyways, Brad, this has been awesome. Thank you for coming on, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, you too, Patrick. Appreciate it.